What's going on YouTube? It's Tej, back again with another video, and today coming at you with another 2024 NFL mock draft 2-round edition with trades. Of course, as this is going on, the Shrine Bowl is underway. We're a couple days away from the Senior Bowl kicking off, so I'm going to highlight some of the players I'm excited to see at those events, whether they're playing or not, and just doing interviews, but really excited to talk about those prospects. And then I think my next mock, I'm ready to go ahead and break out the first 3-rounder of this draft cycle. The Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl are huge for filling out kind of those day 2 selections for me. And then the Combine will help even more. But I think in a couple weeks when I come back with another mock, it's going to be my first 3-rounder of the season. So this will be good practice because if we're going to do 3-rounders, I got to pick up the pace. So let's go ahead and kick things off, starting with the Chicago Bears on the clock at number 1. I'm going to go Caleb Williams. And then here at number 2, man, guys, I've been excited for like more than a week now. It's like, I'm going to have a little twist here at 2. It's going to shock everybody. But real quick, Caleb Williams at 1. I think this makes a ton of sense for Chicago. I'd go Drake May personally. He's the top QB on my board, but Williams showcases a lot of special. And, you know, I think the Bears should take a quarterback here. And then for anybody who's wondering if the Bears go quarterback here, I am operating under the assumption he is a Las Vegas Raider for this video. Last time out, we did the Falcons. This time, let's just say he lands with the Vegas Raiders, so no QB for the Raiders in this mock draft. And they actually had an interview with Luke Getsy, which I think is kind of similar to when the Bears had an interview with Cliff Kingsbury. I think that was extended scouting of Caleb Williams. I think this Luke Getsy interview is not really for him to be the OC. I doubt that they would do that and then bring Fields in. I think this is just kind of extended scouting on Justin Fields. Would he want to be someone we want to bring in as a quarterback option and see what he could do for this offense? I think that's going to be the option here. And to do something a little fun, let's just say Fields ends up with the Raiders. And kind of get into my root point here, you know, if you were to just kind of rotate all 32 teams in at the number 1 pick, how many of them don't take a quarterback here? You know, probably someone that's 6 to 8 range. You know, it's Kansas City because they have Pat Mahomes. It's Baltimore because they have, you know, Lamar Jackson. It's the Chargers because they have Justin Herbert. Also, speaking of that, as we go through, I'm going to talk about some of these head coaching and these GM and these offensive defensive coordinator hires as I think about it. But basically, there's kind of 6 to 8 teams across the league that I don't think would take a quarterback here because they already have elite one. I don't think Chicago's in that boat. So I think they go quarterback here. And yeah, I got sniped this week by Mel Kiper Jr. I was going to do a reaction mock, but I decided to save it for my own mock, and maybe we'll do another reaction later on this week. But yeah, I think there's a more than 0% chance, which, you know, kind of a duh statement, but there's a more than 0% chance that Washington, with Williams off the board, likes Daniels more than Drake May. And I was like, you know, this is a conversation that needs to be had. Again, of course, Mel Kiper Jr. beats me to the punch, but I seriously think this is worth considering, you know, and we'll see what ends up happening. It sounds like it's going to be Ben Johnson as the head coach. You're paying for that offense, which I'm really excited about. Fascinated to see who's going to be the DC. But I could see where they want this kind of. I mean, Drake May is super mobile, but 5 years worth of starting experience, gotten better and better year over year. Man, I think this would be an interesting conversation to be had here at 2. I think if Caleb Williams is there at 2, that's their guy. He's a DMV, you know, local, and Rick Spielman, you know, as an advisor, loves Caleb Williams, so I think he'd have a heavy influence there. But with Williams off the board, I think it's worth having the conversation. Daniels versus Drake May. Again, personally, I'd go May. But this makes it an easy selection here at 3. New England, Drake May, need a quarterback of the future. I think there is a world where they could go Marvin Harrison Jr., but then that would just leave me scratching at who's going to be that quarterback. Because ultimately, I do think 5 to 6 are going to go in the first round. Maybe Penix is the guy who falls into the second round. That's what we're going to have in today's mock. But yeah, I wouldn't bank on that. And even if you're drafting a quarterback in the second round, it says you didn't have a whole lot of confidence to take him at 3. So what does that really say about the guy, you know? And maybe they go free agency option, but, you know, we'll see over the course of time. But I think they want a franchise guy through the draft and have that guy be the dude for the next 10 plus years. And I think Drake May could definitely be that guy. All right, and then we're going to have something pretty similar. These next 3 picks is what I had in my last mock. Marvin Harrison Jr. gives Arizona a clear-cut number 1, makes everyone else look that much better as they get knocked down a rung. Los Angeles Chargers, Malik Neighbors. Oh my God, Justin Herbert's arm with Neighbors' explosiveness and ability to just be a big play threat would just be awesome. I think in this world, I'm fine with Keenan Allen or Mike Williams. Personally, I just think Keenan Allen is a little bit more reliable. He's just a slightly better football player. So I'd keep Keenan Allen, use him inside and out, mostly on the inside. Neighbors can kind of be that counter. You know, when Keenan's playing on the outside, you move Neighbors inside, and then vice versa. And then hopefully you get some year or 2 development out of Quentin Johnston. And then, you know, you kind of patch up tight end. Maybe you can get someone in the second round, maybe someone in the third round. But really excited to see what Jim Harbaugh does with this franchise. That was my head coaching prediction for the Chargers. That one felt like one of the more obvious ones. I think both sides were really invested in getting it done. So really excited. I think that was a slam dunk hire. Like that was the perfect guy to take over the Chargers, in my estimation. We'll see, obviously, in a couple years. Let me get to the Giants. Roma Dunze, he's the exact receiver they're missing right now. The big physical back shoulder guy along the sideline. I think him working in the middle of the field, which will be opened up more by a presence like a Jalen Hyatt as the deep threat. Wan'Dale Robinson, yards after the catch guy, slot receiver. Again, I think this trio gets a whole lot better when you have a Dunze type that knocks everyone else down a rung. And then, again, kind of sticking with the obvious trend here, Joe Alt, Tennessee, he's my OT1. I think he's a perfect fit. And, Brian Callahan, really intrigued to see if he can get his dad out of retirement. I haven't seen any official announcement on that, but this is an offensive line that needs some coaching. I think Andre Dillard is a contract I would just move on from. I'm thinking about starting a Fix the Franchise series. Let me know if you guys would be interested. I'm probably going to start with the Steelers just to see kind of how that video does. But I found an app that gives me a really nice off-season simulator, and then we'll just jump over to the PFF mock or something like that and do a team-based sim. We could even do it here on mockdraftdatabase.com. So let me know if you're interested in that. But Tennessee, I think Andre Dillard would be one of those contracts I would cut. I'd just move on from. And then you keep Peter Skoronski at left guard, run behind Alt and Skoronski. Really excited about that. I assume Derrick Henry's gone, but Tajay Spears running behind that left side of the offensive line, that makes me excited. And now you just got to build out the rest of that offense around Will Levis. All right, on to pick number 8, the Atlanta Falcons. I'll go Jared Verse here. This is going to be an interesting team in regards to what they want to do with quarterback. There's not going to be a quarterback taken here. As of right now, it's either Minnesota or Atlanta to me that makes the most sense for Kirk Cousins. I'm going to say he lands with the Falcons here. I'm trying to think about where this QB carousel ultimately goes as I'm making these mock drafts because there's just too many teams that need a quarterback with not enough draft guys to go around. So that makes this kind of difficult. And, actually speaking of quarterback, we'll get to one here at 14, but I almost did something different with the Giants at 6. We'll talk about it a little bit later on. But here I'm just going to say Kirk Cousins is the quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons. I actually think the Raheem Morris coaching, honestly, that might have been the better hire than Bill Belichick. It sounds like the front office control was the holdup there for Bill, which is really interesting because it sounded like he was willing to give that up. But honestly, Raheem Morris he's earned the opportunity. And I'm really hoping Zach Robinson becomes the offensive coordinator for the Steelers, but I could also see a world where he just follows Raheem Morris to Atlanta. That'd be really intriguing, a Sean McVay offense with those weapons. But I also know they've had interviews with people not named Zach Robinson for the offensive coordinator spot, so really intrigued to see where that goes. But I actually think the Raheem Morris hire is a really good one. And ultimately, it worked out to the benefit of the Jacksonville Jaguars with Ryan Nielsen, who I think did a great job in Atlanta this year as the DC, now going to Jacksonville. I think that's a clear upgrade over Mike Caldwell. No disrespect. Sounded like he was going to land the Eagles DC job. They end up getting Vic Fangio. Now maybe he'll be the linebackers coach, where he was. He was a really good linebackers coach before he was the DC in Jacksonville. So, intrigued by this coaching carousel and where these coordinators are bouncing around and whatnot. So anyways, getting back on track, hyped about the Raheem Morris hire. I actually think that might have been the better move over Bill Belichick, to be honest, long term. And then Jared Verse here, assuming you get Kirk Cousins in free agency, this is your double-digit dude on the edge. That sets the tone there, makes Arnold Ebiketie better, makes everyone else just kind of fall into the right place. So like that pick a ton. And then here I'm going to go a little outside the box. I'm going to go Brian Thomas Jr. at 9. You get Caleb Williams, who's this great downfield passer, extender of plays, can make the special stuff happen. And Brian Thomas, super long strides because that will run a really fast 40. 6'4", great ball tracking skills. This is a great deep threat. And then you have DJ Moore, who does some of that, but also is a great yak weapon. And then there's just two completely different body types. So I think this could work. I'd be wondering then who receiver 3 is. Maybe you go get a Braxton Berrios type in free agency to play the slot. Or maybe you bring back Darnell Mooney, maybe. But I think Brian Thomas Jr. is going to go a lot higher than maybe kind of where mock drafts are having him right now. He kind of seems to fall in that 20 to 40 range in a lot of mocks that I'm seeing. Don't be surprised if he ends up being kind of that top 10, top 12 pick that is wide receiver 4 off the board. That wouldn't shock me whatsoever. And he kind of serves as an interesting compliment for DJ Moore. Again, I almost did something different where Odunze wasn't the pick at 6, and then he would have been the guy here at 9, which I'm sure a lot of Bears fans would have been excited about. To the New York Jets, Olu Fashanu, we've done this 1,000 times. Don't need to do the song and dance once again. To me, he's not my OT1, but he is the best pass protector in this class. Love his mirroring ability. 2 years as a starter at Penn State. I think over the next 2 years, he'll add probably 10, 15 pounds worth of muscle, take away my strength concerns that I have with him right now, and then this becomes the blindside protector of the future. Kind of the next DeBrickishaw Ferguson type for the New York Jets. Not saying that's 1-for-1 comp, but that type of presence and staple to that offensive line, which for the next year, maybe 2 with Aaron Rodgers, that's pivotal. Then we get to the Minnesota Vikings. This is not a selection I've actually done yet, but I would love the fit. Dallas Turner. I mean, this team could be losing Danielle Hunter and Marcus Davenport, so need to load up at that position. And Dallas Turner has the ceiling to easily be edge 1 in this class. And, at this point, he's kind of at edge 2 right behind Verse. I think both those guys have probably the highest ceiling of this class. And honestly, as much as I love Verse, Turner might have the higher ceiling just because, he's on that upward swing. He's getting better and better. He's adding strength. He's adding inside counters on top of being an uber explosive athlete. I think this is the kind of cornerstone. This is, again, not a one-for-one comp, but that Jared Allen type of impact that the Vikings used to have, where that dude, you can count on that dude having 12 plus sacks a year. They've had that with Danielle Hunter. I think Dallas Turner could be that next great Vikings pass rusher, and I love the value there at 11. All right, on to pick 12. Sorry, Broncos fans. I have to get this off my chest. This is going to be a pick that you see a ton throughout the rest of the draft cycle. I think Bo Nix is going to be Sean Payton's guy. I'm pretty confident this is his dude. We'll find out more information. I have the right to change my opinion as I get more intel. But quick processor who attacks underneath like a Drew Brees, but also has arm strength to kind of fit into modern NFL and be able to take those chances, push the ball deep down the field with whoever those receivers end up being. But I think that underneath attacking ability, the processing speed, then you add on the mobility and a body frame that's more akin to a Taysom Hill. This is kind of Drew Brees. I mean, this is kind of Brees plus Hill. This is like Sean Payton's dream marriage of a quarterback. We saw him learn a new offense, get a whole lot better because of it. I think he could be a day one step in and play guy for Denver, and they're paying a ton of money for Russell Wilson. I think they almost have to go rookie quarterback option as much as they'd love to go maybe get a Baker Mayfield, get a Kirk Cousins, compete right away. I think they're going to have to go cheap just because of how much money they're paying Russ. All right, on to pick number 13. You're starting to see a whole lot more mocks with the Raiders taking offensive line, specifically right tackle. Love the fit of Talise Fuaga. Have him be the bookend opposite of Colton Miller. Got your tackle tandem set for the next 5 to 8 years. Love it a ton. He is a Raider through and through to me. Great mauler in the run game. Plays with the chip on his shoulder. Mean mugger. And that physicality, you just see it through and through. And I think he's more than fine in regards to his pass protection. He's not Ulu Fashanu, but I don't think he's a liability either. So I think you're getting an A-tier level run blocker with someone who is, you're fine starting day one as a pass protector. Some maybe see it a little bit different, maybe aren't as high as him as a pass protector. I think he'll be fine day one. There'll be growing pains for sure. I'm not saying he's going to be elite, but I think he'll be fine. He won't be a total liability. I think either gap scheme, zone scheme, I think he fits into it. All right, let's get on the New Orleans Saints here. That's where I'm going to J.J. McCarthy come off the board. And to kind of just peel back the curtain, I thought about this at 6 for the Giants. Because you're kind of stuck with Daniel Jones for another year with the cap hit. That was basically a 2-year extension, even though it was kind of it's a 4-year, $160 million deal. It was basically a 2-year extension with the guaranteed money, and with the thought that maybe JJ McCarthy needs another year of school. You kind of draft and stash him in New York, and Brian Dable, it's like, hey, I took advantage of the tools and traits Josh Allen had. I can do the same thing with J.J. McCarthy, who has good mobility, just won a national championship, killer arm strength. We just got to add a little bit of touch to it. I could see where Dable's willing to take on that challenge, have him sit behind Daniel Jones, and then you let Jones walk, and you have your starter in-house. I'm basically doing the same thing here with New Orleans. It's been I don't think I've had a video actually yet this draft cycle with New Orleans taking a quarterback, but it's a reasonable outcome. It's totally a possibility. And they're kind of in the same boat with Derek Carr. You can't move on from this year because it's like a $50 million dead cap hit. You don't want to be in that Matt Ryan territory with the Falcons a couple of years ago where you're just paying shells of money, just absolutely taking a dent out of your cap because you got to pay the guy because it's guaranteed and he's not even playing for you. So, I basically think you draft and staff J.J. McCarthy, let him sit behind Derek Carr for a year, and then, next year when the cap hit's not quite as egregious, you move on from Derek Carr. And then this year serves as kind of a prove-it year for Carr. Hey, go out there, ball out. You have Chris Olave. We'll put other weapons around you. We have a chance to win the division still, next year. It's not out of the realm of possibilities depending on what this offseason looks like for New Orleans. A change in offensive coordinator certainly could go a long way. Maybe a Gerard Johnson from Houston. I actually really like that. I like it a lot more than Mike Sullivan if I'm the Saints. But, nail this OC hire. Derek Carr is a good year. And all of a sudden, it's like, hey, there's teams lining up. We'll give you a second rounder for Derek Carr. We'll take on that contract. That's fine. And then you already have J.J. McCarthy in place with a year of, sitting behind Carr, learning, the offense, getting accustomed to the NFL speed, everything like that. All those cliches. I think this is a possibility. I think it's realistic at 6 for the Giants, 14 here for the Saints, and then Seattle at 16. But I think that's what Mel Kiper Jr. did in his mock earlier this week, so I didn't want to totally copy Mel, especially considering I just did the Jane Daniels thing at 2, which, I'd been planning for a while, but he just kind of beat me to the punch. So, yeah, going to be really interesting to see what the approach is for J.J. McCarthy. Draft and play him right away, or draft and stash and kind of give him that extra year development that some thought he might need if he went back to Michigan. Going to be an interesting conversation. Then we get to 15. This is going to be our first trade. I think this is one that I've done a ton. Chris Ballard's all about accumulating assets. And Cincy, I think at this point, I'm saying they're going to tag T. Higgins, but Tyler Boyd has to walk. So let's go get that other middle of the field, between the hashes option, and Brock Bowers. He's also a fantastic run blocker. Boost up your run game from that standpoint. He could even just play slot straight up for this team. But ultimately, I think you play him at tight end, and then basically Andre Yoshivas plays on the outside. You move Jamar Chase inside, or when you want Chase outside, Charlie Jones, sharp right rudder out of Purdue in last year's draft. Like him a good bit as an under-the-radar kind of breakout candidate. He could just become your slot receiver. So it just gives this offense a ton of flexibility to move these movable chess pieces around. And Brock Bowers, falling to you at 15, you jump all over that, even if it means give up a third-round selection. All right, then we get to Seattle here at 16. I think this is the same pick from my last mock, but the value here for Byron Murphy is far too low. And now you're really starting to see it. In a lot of these mock drafts, he goes from this like late first round guy, last like month and a half or so. I've been hyping him up. Goathouse been hyping him up. Daniel Jeremiah, Dane Brugler, Mike Renner, Trevor Sickam, all these draft analysts are starting to, you're hearing them say Byron Murphy II out of Texas is their top IDL, and all of a sudden you're seeing mock drafts where he's going 9, 11, 15, here he's going 16, and I think I think the rise is only going to continue. If he plays at the Senior Bowl, specifically in the Senior Bowl game, this guy's going to tear up those one-on-ones, can win with finesse, can win with power, solid against the run. I think there's potential for him to be a plus level pass rusher at the next level. Really excited about his game. Again, he's my IDL 1. And I think not only the run defense, but another pass rusher on the inside, partner him up with Draymond Jones. That interior pressure makes those edge rushers who are on the up and up to me with Boye Mafe, Derek Hall, Lieutenant Owosu. I think they're only getting better. Specifically those two young guys, those two former second rounders, these type of interior pass rushers and the attention they get, and the taking away the ability for a QB to step up only makes those edge rushers that much more productive. I.e. Kayvon Thibodeau with like 12, 13, 14 sacks this year because Dexter Lawrence, was creating a ton of pressure, and then Kayvon Thibodeau cleans up the play. I also think Kayvon Thibodeau got better this year, but you can have both. Anyways, let's move on now and let's talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm gonna have them move back. The player I have selected here is gonna ultimately go to the Pittsburgh Steelers, basically just kind of mirroring the same thing they did last year, moving up 3 spots. 4th round pick. They have 2 of them. Here we'll even throw in a 6th rounder just to juice the value just a little bit. And it's going to be Cooper DeJean. I like the fit of DeJean in Jacksonville too as that new slot. But I just think Pittsburgh needs to make this type of investment. And this is I'm really interested to see what Pittsburgh wants to do at corner this offseason. Do they call Chicago again? If they can't work out an extension with Jalen Johnson, give up a 2nd rounder, you're the team that pays him. I'd be totally fine with that. I think him and JPJ would be an awesome complement to one another. Then you plug in DeJean to play the slot corner spot. Oh my God, that would be my dream offseason as a Steelers fan. Find a right tackle, move Broderick Jones over to the left side. I'd be sipping the Kool-Aid at that point. But if they go L'Jarius Sneed, maybe this is a Nate Wiggins instead. So I do want to add that caveat here. If they land a L'Jarius Sneed from Kansas City, play him in the slot, take advantage of his tackling skill set, maybe go Nate Wiggins here. So fine with either one of these corners. DeJean's my top slot, and Wiggins is my top outside corner. I value slot a ton, so that's why I leaned in this direction. Pittsburgh's been too bad at defending the middle of the field, and slot receivers have had some big games against them too. We've seen a lot of different teams move their best inside to take advantage of that, especially post Mike Hilton. So yeah, I think this is an immediate upgrade. Also, this shores up the team's run defense, which is a little spotty, specifically when Cam Hayward is not on the field. All right, now we get back to the Indianapolis Colts. Speaking of Nate Wiggins, I think this makes a ton of sense. A lot of mocks have done this. Great size, speed, freak athlete that kind of checks the Ballard boxes. Partner him up with Juju Brents. You have 2 one-of-a-kind type of athletes. And Wiggins, I'm going to buy on this developmental curve. He's gotten better year over year at Clemson. Went from this raw, athletic, true freshman playing to now he's not super polished, but he's a whole lot more polished now than he was 2 years ago, while still having an insane amount of hustle, insane athletic, ability, also great instincts for the position, great ball skills. This is the type of guy you want to buy into, and again, that's why he's my outside corner number 1. Then we get to the Rams here at 19. Let's just keep the corner run going. Terrion Arnold right now is my slot 2, but if I were to call him an outside corner, he'd be my outside corner too. I love me some Terrion Arnold. And honestly here, depending on what the arm length is, as much as I value slot, The move for Arnold just might be inside-out flexibility. So if Pittsburgh were to take him, he could be the guy that if you're having a hard time, in the slot matchup, you move him inside. Or if the concern's on the outside, you play him outside. And then you have JPJ, who is better matched against like a T. Higgins type. Arnold, who maybe fares a little bit better against like a Jamar Chase type. Just throwing out names there. Neither one of those assignments is easy, but hopefully I'm conveying that point properly. And here for the Rams, you don't ever have a whole lot in the cornerback room in general. So inside, outside, Terrion Arnold's a big-time upgrade. Love the athletic profile. And as a redshirt sophomore, 3 years of college experience, this guy's ready for the next level. Going to be one of the younger prospects in this year's class. And I'm buying in big time to Terrion Arnold. Again, either my slot 2 or my outside corner 2, no matter how you spin it. All right, the Jags here at 20, Leatu Latu. They need another edge rusher. Could go receiver here for sure. Don't hate that. But I did 80 Mitchell on my last mock. Don't want to get too repetitive. And let's just say once we get to the second round, there's still a receiver on the board that, I'd be excited about the fit, let's just say. Leatu Latu, though, you're just getting a NFL-ready day one starter. Has a full move set, great with his hands, and above average athlete to where I don't think he'll be a liability there. Partner him up with Josh Allen, who's either going to get franchise tag, I assume, or gets the extension. Trent Baalke has the statement the other day, he will be a Jacksonville Jaguar, plus the upgraded defensive coordinator, in my opinion, with Ryan Nielsen coming in. Love that. That makes this kind of an interesting Cam Kitchen spot. But that being said, if Nielsen can trust Andre Sisco to play center field like he did at Syracuse, the dude has insane range and ball skills and was a true playmaker at Syracuse. Could he be their kind of Jesse Bates type? I'm really interested to see what Andre Sisco's stock looks like post this upcoming season. But you plug in Leatu Latu, partner him up with Josh Allen, and then Trayvon Walker, movable chess piece, play him inside, play him outside. I like that edge trio a lot there in Jacksonville. Miami then at 21, I'm going to go Graham Barton. This is just a guy that whatever issue comes arise for the Dolphins and their offensive line, this is a guy who can fill in. Teron Armstead gets hurt, Barton could be a spot starter at left tackle. I think he's an immediate upgrade there at left guard. If something happens to Connor Williams, they don't get him back in free agency, well, he could be your day one center too. So whatever injuries pop up, Graham Barton gives you an answer there. He's my top interior offensive lineman. Specifically from a guard standpoint, a lot of people think his best position might be center. I'm fine with that. I just love the flexibility. And it's him and Jax Powers-Johnson. Those are the top 2 interior offensive linemen for me. But I'll prioritize the flexibility Barton gives you in this case. At 22, let's give the Philadelphia Eagles J.C. Latham. This is your Lane Johnson of the future. And honestly, maybe right now he could play a little bit of guard just to get his feet wet. I'm interested to see what happens at center, with Kelsey moving on. Do you go Jax Powers-Johnson here? Do you just trust Cam Jurgens to be that Kelsey replacement? That felt like the idea in mind when they made that selection. So if that's the case, guard spot opens up. Latham could be a plug-in option there. But again, I'm thinking of this as, your Lane Johnson replacement. And also, I hate to say this, Lane Johnson's probably going to miss 4 to 6 games next year, if not more. So Latham might have an immediate opportunity to start. And then I'm going to have Amarius Mims go to the Houston Texans, little right tackle run here. They just need to get an upgrade there. And also, I just think his upside at 23, this could prove to be one of the biggest steals of the draft, just because, they don't make him 6'7", 340 moving the way he does. Not quite the mauler that I think Broderick Jones is, not quite as polished as maybe Broderick Jones was. And, Broderick Jones was raw last year. So Mims a little bit more work in progress, but he's also missed a ton of time. So this is just where I'm looking at the Houston Texans as a team that exceeded a lot of expectations this year. Felt like a lot of young players were better than we thought they would be, hitting the ground running. Not just Stroud, not just Will Anderson, but, Blake Cashman all of a sudden gets a whole lot better. Henry To'o is making a lot more plays than I thought he would as a rookie. And you just get some of these, and even someone like a Steven Nelson, who has been fine most of his career, has a pretty solid this year in Houston. I feel like they're maximizing the players on the field, so I don't mind giving them a kind of a boom bust prospect here and hoping that they get the best out of Amarius Mims. Then we get to Dallas at 24. I'm actually going to have them trade back just a little bit and have Arizona slide up a handful of spots. To me, this was just a place where, Dallas wouldn't shock me if they're looking to get a few more assets. And for Arizona, the value is just simply too good to pass on here. They have 3 third-rounders. We'll give the last one to Dallas. It easily could just be a 4th rounder. We're not getting those rounds today, so I'll make sure before we get into the 3rd rounder that I'm stringent on, do I want this to be a 3rd, do I want this to be a 4th? But here for Arizona, Kool-Aid McKinstry, still think he's a guy who should go round 1. Not the most, God-gifted athlete in this class, but, starting as a true freshman for Nick Saban says a lot. 3 years of starting experience. He'll probably, if he runs mid 4.5s, honestly, if he runs low 4.5s, I'm pretty excited about that, given his, arm length and his frame in general, 6'1"-ish. So, yeah, I think this is just a great value here at 24, even if it means giving up one of those 3 third-rounders. Partner up with Garrett Williams, who pretty solid size, really good athlete, kind of an underrated guy because he got hurt before he entered the draft at Syracuse. partnering up with Kool-Aid McKinstry. Like that a ton. Keitrell Clark, a guy I'm pretty optimistic about being a solid slot corner as he gets better and better and gets more experience. So I just think this rounds out that secondary in Arizona a ton. Let's get to Green Bay here at 25. That's where I'm going to have Cam Kinchens go. He maybe got burnt a few times too many this last year at Miami, but that's just because he's trying to make a play. And I can appreciate that versus being hesitant, cautious, conservative, and things like that. You go back 2 years ago where he's playing a little less aggressive. He's reeled in a little bit. And then I think that was where they had the perfect balance. He's a playmaker. He has 6 picks. He's doing it a ton, but he's not also like going so far out of his way to try to make those plays that he's ultimately given up chunk plays. This year, I think he got a little too aggressive. You reel him in a little bit. This is a Green Bay secondary that needs pretty much a complete overhaul depending on what happens with Jair Alexander. If you keep Jair or if you keep Eric Stokes, okay, cool. Maybe you're looking for one corner and a pair of safeties. Maybe you draft one. Maybe you sign one in free agency. This would be another fun team to do a fix the franchise for. But Cam Kinchens here at 25. Glad to get him back in the first round. Just a solid football player that could do a lot of things right. Move him around on the field. But depending on what this defensive coordinator hire ends up being, would love to see him be that over-the-top playmaker for that defense. Tampa 26, I'm going to go Chop Robinson here. Him or Braylon Trice, I'm fine with here. I'm just going to buy into the athleticism that Chop has and say, a team's not going to let him fall out of the first round. I don't think it's impossible, but I don't think he falls out of the top 36, honestly. That first Washington second rounder, I just can't see Chop getting past that point. Needs a lot of work in regards to being a polished pass rusher, but just absolutely blessed from an athletic standpoint. You don't find him as big and as strong. Talk about him being 250. He plays the run really well for someone who it almost feels like he should be 260 or something with how he plays the run. So love the first step. Love the athletic traits. These guys can be a true combine warrior, no doubt. Solid run defender. Just got to teach him how to use his hands, teach him a few moves, and then this guy absolutely has like Pro Bowl, All-Pro type of ceiling. So to get that value at 26, I'm pretty excited about that if I'm a Bucs fan. All right, now we get back to Dallas at 27. Let's go Jordan Morgan here. He's going to be at the Senior Bowl. Love to see some one-on-ones with him and Leatu Latu because these are two guys that I think pretty confidently I can say I can plug in right away and play on Sundays. Certainly with Leatu Latu, I think Jordan Morgan would be just fine too if he had to suit up tomorrow. But this, guard center flexibility, some people see him as a guard. I think he'd be fine at tackle. We'll get the arm length measurements and we'll be able to make a decision. But whether he's playing tackle and Tyler Smith stays inside at guard or it's the other way around, Morgan's going to be your left guard, Tyler Smith makes the move to left tackle, totally fine with that as well. I don't hate the idea of Kingsley Suamataia depending on what happens with Tyron Smith. If Tyron Smith plays another year, I have a hard time thinking it's somewhere that's not Dallas. So they could bring back Tyron Smith, draft a Kingsley Suamataia, a little draft and stash, develop this, 6'8", really fluid, foot-moving, big guy, and have him just sit behind Tyron Smith, who's been among the best pass protectors of my lifetime. That would be a fit. That makes a ton of sense. It would make me really excited about Suamataia's outlook. Let's get to the Buffalo Bills here at 28. This is where I'm at. Braylon Trice come off the board. Look, this year for Von Miller was an absolute disappointment. There's no other way to put it. And we're at a point now where they can cut him and save a little bit of money. Really that, what was it, a 5-year deal, 6-year deal? It was really a 3-year contract when you look at the guaranteed money. So they're kind of entering that last year of like, yeah, we're paying him good money and we can't cut him and save a ton. They can cut him and save a little. Next offseason, 2025 is when they could save a ton of cash by moving on from Von Miller. But that being said, Greg Rousseau's become a solid player. And I think they have a, Ed Oliver breakout for sure. But I think Braylon Trice could be that other guy. I think Epineza is kind of a rotational guy. I think Trice plus Rousseau, you're having two big guys. Rousseau with those crazy arms coming out of Miami. Trice with the speed to power ability, plus Ed Oliver again kind of breaking out. I think this is the kind of that missing piece that they thought Von Miller would be in year 2. Really only was that first year in Buffalo. I think Trice could be that piece. And this is a team that's not afraid to draft edge. I mean, they've drafted edge like 3 of the last 5 drafts in the first round or 2 of the last 4 drafts in the first round. Like, this is a position they understand is valuable, so I don't think they would pass on it once again just because they've already done it. Johnny Newton's another intriguing piece here. You kind of get some run defense reinforcements. Also getting a solid pass rusher, line him up next to Ed Oliver. I wouldn't hate that fit either. Now let's get to the Kansas City Chiefs. Speaking of Kingsley Suamataia, love the upside here. And a guy who actually has a good amount of, pass blocking sets under his belt. Plays a little tall, but other than that, I think there's a lot of traits here. Huge ceiling here for Kingsley Suamataia for a big guy at 6'8". And Donovan Smith, 1-year deal. I think they can certainly get better than Donovan Smith. So I like the opportunity to take the swing of the bat here for the Kansas City Chiefs. Maybe in a perfect world, Suamataia goes to Dallas. You have him sit behind Tyron Smith. That maybe is the best situation for him. And for Kansas City, they get a guy like Jordan Morgan, like I was saying. I feel pretty confident could suit up tomorrow and play decent football. So maybe that's the preferred outcome here for the Kansas City Chiefs, but not how I had the board break out this time. At pick number 30, let's give the Detroit Lions a corner. Quinyon Mitchell, I think they need at least one guy in this year's class, somewhere in the first 2 rounds to be, someone they can look forward to over the next 4 years as an upside play. You got Cam Sutton there, but he's been kind of tough. He hasn't had a great season. Emmanuel Mosley was worth the opportunity, but it's just a 1-year deal, 1-year contract for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I think Brian Branch is the slot of the future. Really, you're just trying to find one more guy to partner up on the outside, and they move Ifeatu Melifonwu around. Sometimes he's playing corner, sometimes he's kind of playing some safety, sometimes he's playing a little nickel, kind of close to the line of scrimmage as well. I'm pretty comfortable with how they use him and keep moving him around. I like how they're using him. But I think Quinyon Mitchell, a little bit more size, a little bit more ball skills than what I've seen out of Cam Sutton this season. Maybe that's the guy that kind of becomes the top name in that cornerback room moving forward for Detroit. And we've seen him go a whole lot higher in other mocks than 30. To 31, I'm going to go Troy Fautanu from Washington. Plug him in at left guard. I've said this 1,000 times. Aaron Banks never made sense to me as a fit in that 49ers blocking scheme, so let's go ahead and get an upgrade here. Fautanu, great run blocker at Washington, more than held up as a pass protector. Slide him inside at guard as an arm length. I think this guy's going to be a home run pick here, especially if he lands in San Francisco. To Baltimore at 32, this is where I'm going to have Johnny Newton come off the board. And this is one of two things. One, Justin Madubuike. I got a feeling, this is just a hunch and how I feel, as of today, January 27th. Kind of feel like maybe Arizona shells out some cash for Madubuike, and I'd be kind of intrigued by that. But I'm going to be interested to see what type of free agency contract he gets. He earned himself a lot of money this year, and it might just be a price point where the Ravens can't match. You got to think they're paying Lamar a ton of money. It's a 1-year deal for OBJ, but if they bring him back, that's eating away at some of that. So if they can't bring back Madubuike, Johnny Newton's a perfect plug-and-play. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Madubuike day one, but you can feel confident about Newton being a day one replacement for that. Or if you bring back Madubuike, there's another opportunity to play Johnny Newton at the other 3-tech spot. Or when you get into your nickel base, have Madubuike and Johnny Newton on the inside, pass rush. Kind of like what we talked about earlier with Byron Murphy, that interior pressure, making that edge group look that much better with some cleanup sacks. You can't go wrong with this selection, in my opinion. And the value of 32 is, I think this is a little low for Newton to me. He's kind of in that 20-25 range, but 32, still get him in the first round. Really good football player. Glad I could do that. All right, to Carolina here at 33, kicking off the second round. Keon Coleman. Again, like I said earlier, I think T. Higgins right now, if I had to guess, gets franchise tag. I feel like Carolina would have been one of those teams that wouldn't have hesitated to give him $30 million a year. So with T. Higgins gone, you're going to hear those T. Higgins comps for Keon Coleman. Not the most polished route runner right now, but I think he's willing and able, and I think he has movement skills that would lead you to believe, yeah, with a little bit of coaching, this guy can be a sharp enough route runner to go along with insane ball skills. I mean, this guy in contested catch situations is unbelievable. And I love when I see receivers have that baseball background, tracking down fly balls. Malik Neighbors, perfect example of that. Go and find the ball, get underneath it. But I also like basketball. And sometimes you can be like, all right, that's a contested catch guy. How much do I love it? But I don't know. With Keon Coleman, you see the box out ability. You legitimately see where it's like, yeah, that guy played Power 5 basketball for sure. So, need a little bit of coaching in regards to route running. I think every other tool and skill set is there. Not a huge yak guy, but at the same time, 6'4", could totally be a bowling ball if used in that way for Carolina. All right, let's get to New England at 34. Let's go Xavier Legette here. Another guy that could easily go in the first round. You're going to hear A.J. Brown light. You're going to heir DK Metcalf light. Big physical receiver that, maybe Devontae Parker is, but I think Legette is a much higher ceiling version of that now. Also giving you a little bit more downfield ability because he has more long speed than a Devontae Parker. So this is wide receiver one of the future, partnered up with Drake May. Love it a ton. Also wouldn't hate Tez Walker here. Drafting a guy coming from the same school as Drake May would totally be fine with that. And we'll talk about Tez a little bit later on here in this mock, actually in just a couple of picks at 38. But he's a guy that if you like Brian Thomas Jr., I think a lot of teams are also going to be high on Tez Walker because there's a lot of similarities there. So how you feel about one, I think, will dictate how you feel about the other. Anyways, let's get back to Arizona now at 35. Chris Braswell. Another guy playing at the Senior Bowl, could definitely improve his stock there. Speed to power guy, but also, unlike a lot of other Alabama edge rushers where they're kind of playing over top of you, using the swim move, getting over your shoulder, he's more of that dip and rip guy. He wants to get underneath your shoulders and kind of use the leverage battle to his advantage. And there's a few of these kind of shorter edge rushers that are, shades of Elmas Dumerville. They always win the leverage battle. Braswell's one of those types, so he's kind of an intriguing player for me. Maybe it's just because, I saw Dumerville kind of tear up the Steelers both in Denver as well as his little short stint there in Baltimore. So he's kind of a player that lives in my nightmares for, whatever that's worth. worth. Braswell I could kind of see as that type, but with a little bit more power in his game than I saw from Doomerville, what I remember from Doomerville. So kind of an intriguing fit here. And I think partner him up with BJ Ojulari, who's a little bit more of a DPR. He's also kind of that finesse, get underneath you, take advantage, speed, win on the outside shoulder. I kind of think Ojulari, Braswell, some similarities that make him intriguing, but also Braswell has some stuff that Ojulari doesn't. Let's get to Washington here at 36. I'm going to go Patrick Paul here. This is one that I've mocked a ton. I think this team's just looking for someone other than Jarvis Leonard to be playing left tackle. Patrick Paul, ton of true pass sets under his belt. I think this is a plug-and-play, solid, day one pass protector at the NFL. Going to be interested to see what the athleticism looks like, the next level, what that means for the run game. Can he be a big focal point? Can you run behind this guy? Or are you running behind the right side? Maybe that's the move for Washington. But I definitely think this is a clear-cut upgrade in regards to pass protection, which is obviously key. You just drafted a quarterback at number 2 overall. With Jaden Daniels, though, I will say, maybe if you're going to draft between Williams, May, and Daniels, Daniels, he's probably the most athletic of those 3, the best on the move. So maybe the need for a tackle is a little bit less if you go with Daniels at 2 versus May and Williams. But I don't know. We're reaching at straws here. It's not much of a difference. I'd want to have a great left tackle if at all possible. And then, if I could have a mobile quarterback, that's just the cherry on top. Chargers at 37. I'm going to go with Tyler Guyton here. I think Tyler Guyton, there's an outside shot. He might be the 3rd offensive tackle off the board. Him and Talise Fuaga. Fuaga, I could definitely see just because high floor. I could see he's got a ton of traits that, mean, like I said, mauler in the run game. He's got a ton of those things that I think NFL teams will like. But Guyton, being as nimble as he is and athletic as he is at that size and what he can do in the run game as a mauler, plus a ton of pass blocking sets under his belt at OU, I don't know. Once the betting markets come out, I might have to explore OT3. Tyler Guyton might be the guy I put a little bit of money on there because it wouldn't shock me because the ceiling's so high. Here he falls to 37, and he's just a clear upgrade over Trey Pipkins. You bring in Jim Harbaugh. He wants to run the football and win with defense. I think that's going to change a little bit when you have, best quarterback that he's had at the NFL level, right? Justin Herbert, clearly better than, Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick. No disrespect to those guys. They were fine, but Herbert's an elite quarterback. So I think that'll change a little bit how Harbaugh's used to do it versus how he wants to do it now. But let's just finish this offensive line overhaul that started 3 years ago. Slater plus Guyton, love that tackle tandem. We'll see. I think Corey Linsley announced he's retiring, so got to figure out center. Maybe they go sign someone in free agency. But that little, touch work at center, maybe it's just bringing back Will Clapp. We'll see. But then Guyton here at 37 kind of just finishes that offensive line overhaul like I mentioned. Tennessee, as promised, at 38. Let's go with Tez Walker. Yeah, even over, an 80 Mitchell. I'd love me some Jalen Polk. Tez Walker is just that field stretcher. Treylon Burks kind of is, but I almost wonder if it's just better using him as a Z or a Y, just kind of keeping him off press coverage, using him underneath, using him as a yards after the catch guy. Drake London has had big plays and they've used him as a deep threat, but I feel like a majority of his routes are underneath, get the ball to him in space, you make him a yak weapon. I almost wonder if it's just best if Tennessee goes about it that way. I'd be really interested to see how Brian Callahan wants to use someone like Treylon Burks. Never really had anybody like that in his arsenal in Cincinnati, so kind of an intriguing fit. But if you use Tez as that, deep threat, long strides again, kind of like Brian Thomas, long strides, 6'2", gets down the field really quickly. Wouldn't shock me if you run somewhere in the 4.3s. So if he's the deep threat, Kyle Phillips is your prototypical white slot guy, work underneath, shift more quick than fast. And then Treylon Burks, a little bit bigger size, can win with some physicality. Maybe you should kind of turn him into A.J. Brown, which is ultimately what they kind of drafted him as a replacement of. I don't see that 1-for-1, but some people comp that. But using him as, this bowling ball after the catch, winning some of those physical underneath routes, Tess Walker is the deep threat. I'm intrigued by it. Also wouldn't hate 80 Mitchell here either. But there's so many good receivers, it's hard to predict the draft order, and I don't want each of my mocks being, okay, the top 3, followed then by my wide receiver 4, 80 Mitchell, followed then by my wide receiver 5, followed then by my wide receiver 6. I'm always trying to change it up a little bit, and today we're kind of focusing on a different possible outcomes of these wide receivers coming off the board. Anyways, long tangent aside, nobody cared. Let's get to Cooper Beebe going 39 to the Giants. I think there's a live possibility he goes in the second round. This is just, he's played tackle, he's played guard, multiple years of starting experience at K-State, and just rock solid in pass protection. And after seeing what that pass protection looked like last year for the Giants, it was one of the worst, as a unit, graded pass protecting units in PFF history. That's something you got to improve upon. And then basically this is just saying we'll go Cooper Beebe at left guard, and we'll give Evan Neal another shot at right tackle. I know a lot of Giants fans would prefer to see Neal move inside, draft a right tackle, but with Tyler Guyton gone, and honestly, I've had a lot of mocks where he falls to 39. Again, I don't think that's all that likely. He may go way earlier than that. So alternative possibility here with Guyton off the board. Give Evan Neal another shot. Beebe, plug and play. big time upgrade there. Pass protection on the inside. Washington then at 40, I'm going to go Ennis Rakestraw. He will not be playing at the Senior Bowl, but will be interviewing, which I think he'll be a guy that crushes those. A guy who, plays bigger than his size. Long speed's going to be a bit of a question, but if that's really his only, kind of concern, I don't know. I think his physicality is just going to draw a lot of attention and a lot of love from NFL teams. Just kind of has that, way about him. And also just like really solid, multiple years of starting at Missouri. And I think he could play inside if you want. Again, talk about his physicality. He's a willing tackler. He's a pretty solid hitter as well. Like he could be a slot at the next level as well. And I think whether it's inside, outside, Washington needs to find some cornerback help. Benjamin St. Juste has not worked out as much as I would hope. I hated the Emmanuel Forbes pick, especially a selection before Christian Gonzalez. Don't know what Ron Rivera and company were thinking there. One of the biggest misses, in my opinion, from last year's draft. We were actually live, and I was with a Commanders fan who, I think his eyes are still permanently stuck in the back of his head from watching that selection be made. Bad one there for Washington. So they got to revamp that secondary. I know they just drafted a corner in the first round, but didn't move the needle. It's just like Quentin Johnson, the Chargers. That's why I went Malik Neighbors at 5. If it didn't move the needle, stay at it. Let's get to Green Bay then at 41. This one I'm going to go TJ Tampa. Just solid, size combination. 6'1", 190. Fluidity in zone. Ability to play some man press. Kind of does a little bit of everything for me. I'm a big fan of TJ Tampa. He's just one of these guys who I think is solid across the board. Maybe doesn't have that one trait that you look at Keelan King, Taron Arnold, it's like, dude, that change of direction is special. Like, wow. You look at Kool-Aid McKinstry, and it's like, dude, this guy's a man press corner, could be awesome. Nate Wiggins, it's the ball skills plus the athletic. TJ Tampa doesn't have that one calling card that makes you say, gotta draft this guy. But it's more like, yeah, he's just solid. He's not going to get beat that way. Doesn't get beat often in this way. He's just a good, solid football player. And again, Green Bay needs to overhaul the secondary. A lot of my mock drafts have gone secondary with each of the first 2 picks, and that trend continues in this 2-round mock. To the Vikings here at 42, this is where I'm going to have finally Michael Penix come off the board. I think he still goes round 1. We'll see what he does at the Senior Bowl. I mean, this is going to be it, right? And especially taking him out of that Washington offense that, the first read a lot of times was open. He knew the timing and when to get the ball out and where it was supposed to go. We're putting him in a new environment, and we're taking away Roma Dunze. We're taking away Jalen Polk. We're taking away Jaquan McMillan, and we're taking away Dylan Johnson. We're giving him a whole new environment, a whole new offense, so now we get to really see what Michael Penix is about. If he's shaky, he's probably a 3rd-round pick. If he's good, put him back in the top half of the first round, top 20 or so in the first round. So it's going to be a make or break week ahead for Michael Penix. I still love him. He's still my QB3. Obviously, more data inbound, so I have the right to change my opinion after the Senior Bowl. We'll see what he looks like away from that Washington offense. Let's get to Atlanta then at 43. I'm going to have Troy Franklin come off the board here. Again, ahead of A.D. Mitchell. I am much higher on A.D. Mitchell than I am Troy Franklin, but I know a lot of people like Troy Franklin, and I get it. Like, he's slippery after the catch, has an abundance of long speed to be a deep threat. And that's kind of what I think Atlanta's missing. Again, Drake London used sometimes as a deep threat and has good ball skills. He can track the football well, but Troy Franklin just has better long speed. And he's 6'3". It's not like he's small and fast. Like, no, he's got good size. He can go up and win in the air. Didn't do a whole lot of that at Oregon, but I think there's potential if he adds, 10, 15 pounds of muscle. He could become a better, contested catch, spectacular catch type of dude with his long speed to get behind the defense. But it's just another dude. Like, if this team gets Kirk Cousins at quarterback, and then defenses are like, well, damn, they could throw the ball to Bijan. Don't really want to tackle him. Drake London, he's a handful to bring down. Now you get slippery Troy Franklin in the mix, plus Kyle Pitts at tight end. It's just another body type I don't want to have to deal with if I'm a defense taking on Atlanta. So it's just kind of putting all these nice complementary pieces, ideally around Kirk Cousins. And I think I lean that way. I think Kirk's going to be a Falcon. I don't know. I keep changing my mind. Kirk's kind of a tough guy to predict because Minnesota makes a ton of sense here. And if that's the case, maybe you make Michael Penix the pick here at 43, and instead Troy Franklin goes to Minnesota as that number 3 receiver. I don't know. You can mix this up a good bit. You could also give a corner to Minnesota. So we'll see. Obviously, we got a much clearer image after free agency. Anyways, let's move on now. T'Vondre Sweat fell a little bit in this mock draft. I'm not going to go here to the Raiders for years now. I've been praying and hoping and mocking, a big 2-gapping nose tackle to Vegas, and here they get one once again for me. T'Vondre Sweat easily could be a first rounder. Wouldn't hate it whatsoever. He's my IDL 2 right now. 6'4", 362, just an absolute monster of a human being. But not only is he a great run stopper, plus level pass rusher, and you get a little bit of a breakout from Malcolm Kuntz last year. Max Crosby's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate for good reason. One more pass rusher could send this pass rush to the next level. Let's get to the New Orleans Saints now at 45. I'm actually going to have them trade here and have the Jacksonville Jaguars move up. At this point, I was like, look, I got to get my wide receiver 4 off the board. I love the kid too much. And basically, I'm going to have Jacksonville, that 4th rounder they cooped back from their trade down in the 1st round, forfeit that asset that they just acquired. And again, it's going to be A.D. Mitchell. Again, go on X, Twitter, whatever you call it. Just search Ian Hartitz almost touchdowns, and you'll see it's like a 4-minute highlight reel, if you want to call it that, of almost touchdowns for Trevor Lawrence. And it's because, as much as I love Calvin Ridley, and Zay Jones is a little bit of this, but he missed a ton of time this year. And with Zay Jones not in the lineup, they just don't have a guy who wins at the catch point. A.D. Mitchell, like, is so athletically gifted that you saw in the college football playoff game in the semifinals. He can mistime his jump and still come down with the football because he's just that god tier of an athlete. Great at tracking the football in. Vice grips for hands. I feel way better about his hands than I do Xavier Worthy, who I'm still intrigued by his upside, but the hands are much more assured for A.D. Mitchell. And the reason he's my wide receiver 4 over someone like a Keon Coleman doesn't show you a whole lot. You see the athletic ability and the wiggle to become a better route runner. A.D. Mitchell legitimately, like, 3 to 5 reps per game, just absolutely obliterates the ankles of a corner. Like, it is absolutely, it's unbelievable. It's like some of the best clips that you can see from any prospect in this year's class. Like, his top end reps as a route runner, you would think that he should go top 10. And maybe he is what I said about Brian Thomas. Maybe that's A.D. Mitchell. I don't know. But that being said, it's super inconsistent. You see it for 3 to 5 snaps a game. Everything else is just kind of meh. You kind of forget about it. But he, more than Keon Coleman, gives you a couple of glimpses of it each week where you're like, okay, there it is. Like, this guy could definitely be a plus level route runner on top of that athletic ability, on top of that ball tracking, on top of the vice grips for hands. Man, I love me some A.D. Mitchell. I'm really excited about his upside, and I think he's the exact receiver the Jags don't have. When Zay Jones is not on the field. All right, at pick for number 46, speaking of Xavier Worthy, we're going to have back-to-back Texas receivers off the board. I think this is just kind of, Paris Campbell, try again. The hands are going to be a bit of an issue for Xavier Worthy, which, if you live through the Paris Campbell era, you're probably like, nope, I'm good on that. Alec Pierce just is not good. So I think I envision this with a re-signing of Michael Pittman Jr. He's your possession plus. Like, he does all the dirty work, the 10 to 15 yard stuff that you expect out of a possession receiver. But, I say possession plus because they use him yards after the catch. He's also a big play threat. He's also pretty solid after the catch. He does more than just be that, it's 3rd and 8, we need to throw a curl route, and he'll hold on over the corner. Like, he does more than just that. And then Josh Downs, I'm really excited about. Better start to the year than a finish, I would say, but still really optimistic about Josh Downs, one of my favorite slot receivers from last year. Love the yards after the catch ability. Sneaky good contested catch guy, can work deep down the field because of that. And then Xavier Worthy is the guy who opens up the middle of the field for Josh Downs and Michael Pittman. His speed in the element, if he just shores up his hands, this is a really well-rounded receiver trio. And again, Alec Pierce is just not good. I think Xavier Worthy is a better route runner right now than Alec Pierce is, in my estimation. Back to the Giants, on the clock here at 47. Let's give him Jonah Ellis. In this world, this is probably him rotating with Azeez Ojulari. Ojulari sees the rundown work. Ellis becomes your DPR complement to him. Ellis, I think, can bulk up. Caden Ellis has pretty solid size playing for, Atlanta, and he's got a brother on the practice squad, I think, for Philadelphia at like 360 pounds. Stow's a defensive tackle, so like there is reason to believe he can bulk up. And if he adds like 10 pounds, then maybe he can become, an every down player. I don't hate that. But maybe he doesn't. And again, he's just playing in tandem with, Ojulari getting the rundown stuff, Ellis getting the pass work. But yeah, just one more pass rusher, because Dexter Lawrence is given a lot of cleanup opportunities to those other guys. If you get legit one other NFL-ready pass rusher like a Jonah Ellis with a 6-spin move, good hands, good step off the line of scrimmage, can turn a little bit of speed into power. Like, I think day one you're getting a solid 8-sack a year type of dude with potential for room to grow. So plugging him in on top of Dexter Lawrence and on top of Kayvon Thibodeau, all of a sudden that front gets that much scarier in New York. To the Giants then at 48, I'm going to go Jalen Polk here. We didn't go receiver in the first round, but I do get him one here. Inside-out flex, solid run blocker as well. I envision playing him on the inside, and then Chris Olave plays on the outside, Rashid Shaheed as well. So you have 2 big play threats. Olave does a lot of the intermediate deep stuff. Same thing with Rashid. He's almost, kind of yards after the catch and deep stuff. And, just to kind of be quick here, I need a receiver who can win at 2/3 of the field. Like, I don't need you to be all 3 levels. That's typically, special dude like a Rome Odunze. I think he's a separated all 3 levels. Marvin Harrison Jr., I think, can impact all 3 levels. Neighbors, all that sort of stuff. Everyone else, I need you to do 2 of the 3. Like, Olave, it's intermediate and deep, and he's elite at that, so he's still an elite receiver in my mind. Rashid Shaheed, great yak weapon because he's a return specialist, and he's an awesome deep threat with an abundance of speed. Polk, to me, a little bit more all 3 levels. Solid yak player, a good enough route runner to win intermediate. not the most God-gifted, athlete, so maybe not the deep threat stuff, but I think you play him in the slot, let him do underneath intermediate stuff on top of, what you have with Shaheed, Olave. He does a little bit of stuff that those other two guys don't do, really rounds out that receiver trio. And again, you draft and stash J.J. McCarthy, build up Derek Carr's stock, and hopefully by next offseason, you're shipping him out for a second rounder, dealing with the dead money hit. Maybe a team will take some of that off your shoulders, and then J.J. McCarthy step into a situation with 3 great receivers, year 2 of an offensive coordinator, and that scheme in play, and I'm feeling pretty good about the outlook there. All right, to the Cincinnati Bengals then at 49. Here in Amegaji, or Amagashi, I've heard of both. I'll go with Amagashi for today's video. Not playing at the Senior Bowl. God, I thought he was really going to be a standout there and a big-time riser, but he is interviewing, and I could see a kid from Yale really crushing that, just kind of going off stereotype, but also a guy who's played right guard, then moved out to left tackle, so I feel confident here, Cincinnati in the second round, inside the top 50. You draft a Amegaji, you flip him back over to the right side, and he's your right tackle of the future, because Jonah Williams is not that. They've already moved on from Lyle Collins. Got to find a long-term starter, or if worse comes to worse, maybe you sign someone in free agency, like a Chukwuma Okorafor, you make a trade for an Andrew Wiley depending on what happens in Washington, and then Amegaji just becomes your left guard, which I'm totally fine with that. He could be a huge upgrade over Cordell Volson. So a couple different paths you can go here to where Amegaji becomes an upgrade for that Bengals O-line. At pick number 50, I'm going to give Kamari Lassiter to the Philadelphia Eagles. I know a lot of Eagles fans don't want to see me go corner. I hear you, but it's just time to get younger and cheaper at that position, as well as just more athletic at this point. Slay I still think is solid, but Bradbury's definitely lost a step, and Avonte Maddox can't stay healthy. This is a team where, honestly, if they got Tyrion Arnold in the first round, I'd be super pumped about it, even not as an Eagles fan, but like Arnold inside-outside flex might be the guy that they kind of hone in on the first round. And also, like Eagles fans, like not to be a dick, but 2 years ago, I had Jets fans tell me, there's no way we're going to take a corner. They take 1/4 overall. I had Seahawks fans all last year, and I was mocking them. Joey Porter Jr., one of these longer, taller, kind of more their type, a Legion of Boom kind of build of a corner. And I had Seahawks fans nonstop. We're not taking a corner in the first round. It's not what we do. It's never been a Snyder thing. We always take them in, day 2, day 3. And I listened to you, and they draft one in the top 5. So, be prepared for just because, things have been operated in the past, this is a different draft class. You have to evaluate it differently. And I think if Kamari Lassiter makes you at 50, take away, what you think about this corner room, this is an insane value. Almost any other mock draft you load up into has him in the first round. Ultimately, my board just kind of played it a little differently. I've had mocks where he does go in the back half of the first round, and it wouldn't shock me. So to get him here at first round, at 50, get a potential first round type of talent, and a guy who maybe needs, I can't believe he's 180. He's got to be closer to 190, right? So, I'm kind of factoring on 6'1", 190, a huge part of Georgia's defense this year, and just almost a Kool-Aid McKinstry's type, not the most absolutely gifted athlete, but kind of solid across the board from an athletic standpoint, and multi-year starter. And Kirby Smart has said it. He just gets the position. He's technically refined. Again, kind of like Kool-Aid McKinstry. Has the intangibles, has the skill sets down, has the position understanding, has the football IQ, just not like the top athlete in this class. So getting him at 50, sorry, long tangent, sorry for the TED talk, but this is a guy who immediate upgrade there on the outside, in my opinion. And then you kind of figure out what you want to do with Bradbury, probably moving on from him, keep Avonte Maddox hopefully healthy, play him in the slot, Slay plus Lassiter. I feel better about that going into next season. All right, let's get on to the Pittsburgh Steelers here at pick number 51. And I'm going to have my favorite squad, Jackson Powers Johnson. Mason Cole is just objectively bad. And when I do the Fix the Franchise video for Pittsburgh, Mason Cole is absolutely going to be one of the people I cut. You can save a good amount of money, and he legitimately can't snap the football, which is a huge red flag for a center. He's a good leader, but not a good football player. No disrespect. Made it further than I did, of course. But Jackson Powers Johnson, just an absolute clear upgrade. And whether they're going to stick with the zone blocking scheme or they're going to go to gap, he fits into it. So he's my top center in this class. Would love the value here at 51. Easily could be someone who goes round 1. And even has some guard flexibility, too. So maybe if they think James Daniels is a better center and he would be a better guard, fine with that. But I just think you can keep him in his native position, keep Daniels where he's at, and let's fix up this interior offensive line. Rams at 52, then let's go with Adisa Isaac. I think just a solid football player, does a lot of things right. Almost shades of Byron Murphy, solid run defender. Byron Young, did I say Byron Murphy? Sorry. Byron Young from last year's class, day 2 selection by LA. Super athletic, super explosive, like 98th percentile broad jump. Adisa Isaac, I don't anticipate doing something like that. Just a solid football player, stops the run well, and with the attention Aaron Donald gets, plus Byron Young in his rookie year, there's going to be a lot of one-on-one opportunities where Adisa Isaac is just solid enough to where he'll be able to win those one-on-ones, and we're just bolstering up that defense in LA. Especially now with Raheem Morris leaving, he got a lot out of a little. Now we need to give the next DC a little bit more juice to work with. Maybe a reunion there with Brandon Staley. I'd be intrigued by that. To the Eagles here at 53. Also, the other thing I wanted to say, Vic Fangio, last year's movement skills and his no for the position actually makes him a really intriguing fit for that Vic Fangio defense. One more thing I want to throw out there. But here at 53, I'm going to give him Jermaine Burton. He may be a little one note. He's kind of a deep threat and deep threat only. Don't see a whole lot of yards after catch ability. So I'm kind of breaking my rule of I want receivers who can win at 2/3 of the field, whether it's short and deep, intermediate deep, short and intermediate, some variation of that. He's kind of just a deep threat, but he's Quez Watkins plus. Like, I think he's Quez Watkins, who's a slightly better route runner, more college experience, multiple year starter at 2 different Power 5 schools, 2 of the best schools in the country, Georgia and then Bama. While also having more short hands than Quez Watkins. The hands are not a concern for me with Jermaine Burton like they are nearly as much with Quez Watkins. So I think Jermaine Burton is definitely a guy to keep your eye on here at 53. We've had a lot of these receivers come off the board. Also, I like Ladd McConkey. I know some people just see him as like, the short, shifty white dude, but I think he's more than that. He's also solid after the catch. Maybe he's like a different receiver type, but I think they want that over-the-top weapon, that deep threat, the guy who brings the speed that opens up Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown a little bit more. I think Jermaine Burton is that type of dude. To the Browns, another mock draft where I give him Peyton Wilson, to me, the top off-ball linebacker in this class. He's been fantastic the last 2 years, and he's been healthy the last 2 years. It's just going to come down to how teams feel about, multiple shoulder surgeries, multiple knee surgeries, but if he gets the green light medically, this guy easily should be a top 60 pick because he is just a great football player, has sideline to sideline speed, great tackler, can play downhill, can play in the back pedal. I just kind of sum up linebackers. Just to make it kind of quick, I either describe a linebacker as a downhill guy, plays the run well but not great in coverage, or a back pedal linebacker, not great against the run but pretty solid in coverage. Wilson's a really good blend of both. So this is kind of the one spot the Browns don't have on defense, that Mike linebacker. Peyton Wilson kind of fills that hole for me. Then at 55, taking a break from JT Sanders. Not going to be the pick this week. Sorry, Dolphins fans. I know JT Sanders is one that I like to mock a lot, but got to change it up. Let's go Chris Jenkins. Shore up that run defense. Was a little bit of an issue down the stretch for this team. And I think Christian Wilkins being a little bit undersized, his first step in his athleticism shines brighter in pass rushing situations than run stop situations. Chris Jenkins plays way bigger than someone who's 290, 295. And I think he kind of is the perfect complement for Wilkins. Jenkins will be your run stopper. Won't get much of him as a pass rusher, but Wilkins you'll get a ton of pass rush juice out of, and Jenkins keeps him clean in the run game. Also wouldn't be shocked by edge here. Like if this is a spot where, maybe Rukaroro is the kind of guy where he could play a little bit of edge where you could also play inside. Don't hate that. You could even, Mason Smith played a little bit of edge at LSU his freshman year. I think of him more as a defensive interior, but Rukaroro could be an interesting guy. Maybe a Gabriel Murphy here, really productive player at college, and you just got your top 2 edge rushers coming off big injuries. Might not be a bad idea to add a solid third option here just outside the top 50. All right, let's get back to the Dallas Cowboys at 56. I normally go Blake Corum. He's my top running back in this class, followed in by Trey Benson, but I'll go Jonathan Brooks. The Cowboys team doctor is the same one at Texas, so if there's a team with the best intel on Jonathan Brooks possible, it's the Dallas Cowboys. So if anyone's going to take this shot on him, I think it's Dallas because they'll get the green light and they'll get the okay that he's good to go. And he still is, just as much as I say Blake Corum's a perfect complement to Tony Pollard, Jonathan Brooks is too. Like this downhill power back that lives between the tackles to Tony Pollard as the outside tackle guy, scat back, receiving work dude. It is a great 1-2 punch there in the backfield for Dallas. I'd go Corum, but wouldn't be shocked if they do go Jonathan Brooks, who, had he not gotten hurt, I think it would have been an RB1 for a lot of people. All right, to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers then. Let's go with Zach Frazier. Zach Frazier, I just saw him was actually on the field and working out like a couple months after like snapping his leg. Like that's insane. Guard center flexibility. He could be a Robert Hainsey replacement at center, who Notre Dame fan here. Robert Hainsey has not been that good. Or you could just play him at left guard and take it from a Steelers fan. God, the name is escaping me. Former Steeler, played for the Chargers for a little bit. Oh, that's going to kill me that I can't remember that off the top of my head. But he also is not very good anymore. Last year in LA for him was pretty brutal. And left guard this year for Tampa Bay was not good. So, God, it's killing me that I can't think of his name. Also played some tackle. But Zach Frazier could easily play left guard, or he could play center and you move Hainsey to guard. I'd be fine with either one. But this is just an upgrade to that interior offensive line that needs it, alongside Cody Mock, second-round pick from last year for Tampa. All right, back to the Green Bay Packers. And speaking of interior offensive line, let's go Zach Zinter. Played his entire career at Michigan at right guard. John Runyon, I think right now is the weak link. Honestly, I think Rasheed Walker has superseded John Runyon. John Runyon now is the weakest link of that offensive line, and that's a unit that is a weak link, unit. Like where you are weakest, you will be exploited. So let's just get a clear upgrade. Multi-year starter, highest graded offensive lineman from the Big Ten the last year. Actually, I think the last 2 years using PFF's numbers. So love that upgrade over John Runyon, and I think at this point Rasheed Walker's earned the opportunity to start. He's a better pass blocker than a run blocker, but we can live with that for the time being. Then we get to Houston at 59. This is a pick I've been dying to make. Malachi Corley, shades of Deebo Samuel. You hear a lot of like Deebo light, great yards after the catch threat, and I would just love to see Bobby Slowick get that type of receiver in his offense. And it's a perfect compliment. Nico Collins, possession plus. I use him as a deep threat, kind of like Mike Pittman. He does a little bit more than just the possession work. Tank Dell, to me, a well-rounded receiver, does a little bit of everything. Yards after the catch, intermediate more than you would think for 5'10", 165-pound receiver. Also in a ton of big playability, a ton of speed. And then Malachi Corley, who brings some speed, brings the yards after the catch stuff. You could even just throw this guy a little simple drag, and it's like, okay, that's a play I have to be scared of now if I'm a defense. So just rounds out that receiving room. I think you play him in the slot. It's an upgrade over Bobby Trees at this point, and him and John Mechie are just two different slot receivers, and they can kind of coexist there. So love that fit. It's not the first time you'll see it in these videos, and it's not the last either. And you'll see it in a ton of other mock drafts for sure. Back to the Buffalo Bills here at 60. Let's go Tyler Nubin. We've all talked about, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, they're getting up there at age. They could use another safety. Tyler Nubin's an awesome center fielder, and I think if you just simplify his assignment essentially and just let him play those split safety looks, half that field is going to be a daunting task to throw on, because Tyler Nubin, great ball skills, great eyes reading the quarterback, also a solid tackler as the last line of defense. I don't know if I want to play him in the box, but if the ball comes his way, I can feel pretty confident he's not going to let it end up being 6 for the opposition. Kansas City at 61, a little bit of a reach here. Like, this is not the most comfortable pick here, but of the guys available, I was like, Ladd McConkey, maybe, but they already have that, kind of, I think Rashee Rice, I'm not saying Rashee Rice, Ladd McConkey 1-to-1, but Rashee Rice, they're leaning on a little bit more as a separator, but most of that is, short to intermediate stuff, and then they're using him as a yak guy. That's probably what you'd use Ladd McConkey as, so don't really want that. Johnny Wilson, big physical guy they don't really have on the roster right now. Okay, don't hate that. But I'm going to go Ricky Pearsall. He's at the Senior Bowl, and, I think his athletic numbers are going to be off the charts. This guy's going to run a blazing fast 40. He's got insane ball skills. Like, this guy's, one, tracking ability, but also his hands are phenomenal. And honestly, if you don't know the name Ricky Pearsall, you've seen one of the greatest college catches of all time. And just type in his name on X, and then you'll see that clip. It is ridiculous. It defies all physics. It does not make sense how that play was made. But I think people are going to see really nice size, plenty of play strength, plus level athlete with an abundance of speed, with those types of hands and ball tracking skills. Like, this is a really interesting moldable ball of clay. And look, Florida's not hit expectations. They have been a disappointing team for a long time now. And a lot of times I think that puts a cap on these prospects. Like, a lot of times you'll see dudes go from a disappointing school to hit the NFL, and they get better coaching, and then all of a sudden they look like a guy who belongs to that level, way more so than they did in college. And I could see Ricky Pearsall, if he balls out, wins those one-on-ones at the Senior Bowl, this guy improves his stock tenfold and becomes this guy that we're talking about in the second round versus the third round. So wanted to throw his name out here. It's a little bit of a projection, but he's also the receiver that the Chiefs don't have. He's like Marquez Valdez-Scantling with way more play strength and someone you can lean on way more heavily than. Compliment to, Rashee Rice, another year of Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce. God, that's how much the NFL is just putting that down our throats, right? Another year of Travis Kelce, I assume. That could be a really nice compliment, the kind of missing piece they're looking for. Almost like Justin Ross plus. That's with more athleticism. More athletic Justin Ross here and Pearsall. Kind of an interesting thought. All right, anyways, leaving that receiver from Florida, let's get to Detroit here at 62. Another spot that kind of would have been interesting for Pearsall or a Johnny Wilson. I think Wilson's kind of the receiver they don't have. But instead, I'm going to go Gabriel Murphy. 3 straight years of being an elite pass rush grade from PFF. Ton of production to go with it. Sacks, hurries, pressures, all of it to go along with the pass rush grade. And also, 6'3", 260. You can play this guy on every down. And then you make Justin Houston, that third round, that third rusher, that DPR, kind of bring him out in third and long. So those obvious passing situations. I think that's the perfect role for him as a slightly smaller edge rusher. So Murphy is the other full-time starter opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. Makes Houston's job that much easier as that third edge rusher. Then we get to San Francisco at 63. I'm going to go Christian Haynes, guard center flex. We drafted Troy Fautanu, so you can play Haynes at center if they move on from Brendel. I think ultimately what I do is I'd play Haynes at right guard, where he played his entire career at UConn, and I just bring Brendel back for a 1-year deal. He's serviceable, and he'll play for 1 year, $1.5 million, double the league minimum. He'll consider that a win probably. So you bring back Brendel, keep that continuity. Fontano at left guard, Haynes at right guard, and I'm feeling great about that offensive line. Would love to get an upgrade over Colton McKivitz at right tackle, but at the same time, he's not losing them a whole lot of games either. Then the Baltimore Ravens at 64. This is where I'm going to have Johnny Wilson off the board, but a couple other names I just want to throw out here. Chris Mahogany, right before recording this, apparently has been tearing up the Shrine Bowl. A guy I was super high on going into the 2023 draft. Still very high on him in 2024. Felt like I've been higher on him throughout this process than most. I think he bounced back from that injury and has been more than fine. So a gap scheme guy more than likely, but guard center flexibility. He's played all three of those spots, left, right guard, and center. Like him a ton. Javon Foster, Senior Bowl guy. Really solid player, not a great athlete, but could just prove that, hey, there's enough there. Brendan Rice, another name to keep your eye on. Man, he could be a really interesting third, fourth round kind of ex-receiver type that gets a little lost in the shuffle. Could be a really solid player, and obviously the son of Jerry Rice. A lot of running backs we could talk about as well. And of course, the QB battle, keep my eye on, as well as Michael Prout, Spencer Rattler, Joe Milton, a lot of guys there that could boost their stock this upcoming week. Anyways, like I said, Johnny Wilson, that's going to be the pick here for the Baltimore Ravens. And really, it's just, they don't have a guy that, other than Mark Andrews, is like, go win it, body to body, man coverage beater. I think that's what Johnny Wilson can definitely be. And honestly, 6'7", long strides. I think he'll run a better 40 time than people are anticipating. It's not going to be 4.30, or anything like that, but he'll be faster than I think a lot of people are expecting. And because of that, he'll be a surprising winner or something like that. So that would be his label coming out of the combine, like surprisingly good showing. The 3-cone's going to be imperative, right? Like how much route running can this guy learn? Can he start running those in-breaking routes like Nico Collins added to his route tree? I don't know why I kept saying Nicole. But you see Nico Collins add that to his route tree in Houston. All of a sudden, he's being utilized way more as a focal point in that offense. And everything else he already did pretty well gets way more open because you have to respect that in-breaking route. So the 3-cone's going to be big for Johnny Wilson. I think he'll run a better 40 than a lot of people are expecting. But again, he's just, Zay Flowers is not winning contested catch balls. It's just not his game at 5'10", 170. It's not really OBJ's game either anymore. He can a little bit, but it's also a 1-year deal, no guarantee he's back, and it's definitely not Rashad Bateman's game. Not like I thought it would be coming out of Minnesota. So I think Wilson's just the contested catch guy that they don't have right now. So let me know what you think about this 2-round mock draft, guys, because that's going to do it. So let me know who went too high, who went too low, who's your favorite team, and did you like the selections that I made for your squad? If not, let me know what you do differently, both from a position group standpoint. Are you prioritizing corner in the first round, edge? Are you not happy with the quarterback that I gave your squad? Any of your thoughts, any of your feedback you want to give on this 2-round mock draft, I'd love to see it down below in the comment section. Also helps this video out in regards to the algorithm, get out to more draft geeks out there. So help me out, grow this community a little bit by dropping a comment what you thought about this 2-round mock draft down below. Speaking of helping the video, be sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, want to see more mock drafts, more draft coverage, more NFL content in general. Be sure to hit that subscribe button because we have plenty more coming, including hopefully that Fix the Franchise series getting off the ground maybe this week, maybe this Wednesday. But that's going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name's Tej, and I am signing off. Enjoy the Shrine Bowl and Senior Bowl, everybody.